Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Ellie and I'm the founder of Code of the Future, and today we're going to be continuing with the Rust course where I'm teaching you all about Rust for beginners. Before we dive into the tutorial, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you are new to the channel. But with that said, I'll put my glasses on and I'll move you onto the screen. Okay, so in the previous video we looked at functions, we learned a little bit about statements and expressions and what classifies as a statement and what doesn't, a little bit about closure, which is kind of was a side topic, but I just wanted to introduce it to you, and then finally how you return values from functions. So we learned a whole range of things about functions in the previous video, but today we're going to move on to tutorial 9, which is all about control flow. So I'm just going to open up the main file for that, and we'll just cross off tutorial 8 for now. Okay, so before we dive in to do a bit of coding, I'm just going to say this is control flow. So things like if, else if, while, etc. If you are from a programming background, which I assume most of you are, I'd be almost a bit scared to hear if you were learning Rust as your first programming language, because it's quite a tough programming language to learn. But you know, if you are, then credit to you. So hopefully you will know what if, else if, while, etc., all those different things mean. So I'm just going to show you them in Rust today. So the first thing I'm going to say is conditions, and I'm going to put this inside the main function because that's where we'll be doing our coding. So the first thing we're going to look at are conditions. A condition, or conditions, are basically any expression that evaluates to true or false. So a boolean, which hopefully you'll know what that is after watching my data types video. So yeah, Boolean data type. And you can create conditions using operators such as, so we have less than, we have less than or equal to, we have greater than or equal to, we have not equal to, and we have is equal to. And these are the different conditional operators. So we'll just put operators in brackets. So that's basically all you need to know about conditions. Is if you take two different statements and input one of these conditional operators, then hopefully you'll get something that's true or false. And I'll show you an example of that now. So I'm going to say let condition 1, and this is going to be a true or false, so it's going to be a boolean. So let's say, okay, well, is 5 less than or equal to 7, and we know that's true, and I'm going to print this and see what Rust thinks. So print condition 1, and I'm going to cargo run. Okay, so it's true, and it is true. We know that 5 is indeed less than 7. We can change this to is 5 greater than 7, which we know is false, and indeed we get false. So that's a bit of a background, I guess, of these conditional operators and how you use them. So if you want to, just have a play around, see what you can get to work. Again, you know, you can do something like is 5 less than or equal to 5, or you know, is 5 equal to 5, and you know, it's true. So yeah, let's stick to what we had previously, which was 5 greater than 7, which we know is false. So that's how conditions work. I'm sure at some point in my tutorial series you've looked at Rust and thought the way that it handles data types is rather interesting, and indeed I'm going to show you another interesting example. So let's say we have another condition, let's say condition 2, and I'm going to say is 5 less than or equal to 7.2, and I'm sure you can all guess what's going to happen. Do we think Rust is going to let us do this? Let's have a look. So cargo run. Oh, what a surprise, we have an error. And here it says we're expecting an integer. So, you know, the data types pops up all the time with Rust. And again, here we're trying to find, you know, a condition, whether it's true or false. And because the two things we're evaluating against aren't the same data type, we have an error. So I'm just going to write a little thing here and say both types must be the same. Now we can change some different things here. We can, you know, we learn about different ways of how you can equate, you know, or add two different, you know, change the type so that they are equal. So here I can say, okay, well, how about we're going to have 5 as an F32. So what we've done here, you don't need the brackets, it'll probably come up with a bit of a warning, but I just put the brackets in just so you know what's what here. So, okay, instead of doing that, let's see, is 5 as an F32 data type, is that less than 7.2? And that's because typically in Rust, if you don't assign 7.2 to a specific type, it automatically does it as an F32, I believe. So let's see if this works. Let's do a cargo run. Okay. What's the issue here? That's because I've put as an, because I am silly. Yeah, true. Okay, so there we go. Just ignore the fact that I put as an F32. I got a bit carried away with writing words out there than natural coding. So true. So that's how we overcome it. Both type must be the same. You can use typecasting, so it's counteract this, or kind of solve it, I guess. Okay, so that's all I really want to say about conditions, and I'm just going to do this. So conditions, again, I suppose the main thing to take away is if you want to find a condition, you take two different values and take these conditional operators. They must be the same data type. I'm just gonna keep drilling it into your head. Okay, so that was conditions. Now I'm gonna move on to compound conditions. So I'm gonna say multiple conditions chained together using logical operators. So these are and, which is like this, or, which is written like this, not, which is written like this, and that just negates the boolean really. I'm hoping that you'll know what these things mean. It's just basically saying you can have two conditions, and you can say, is this condition true, and is this condition true, then do something. Or you can say, is this condition true, or is this condition true, and then, perform something. So it's essentially just, what it says, and or not. And not is pretty much, if you have something and it comes out at a boolean, and if you put the not operator in front, it will negate it. So it'll change it from, say it was true, it'll change it to false. Okay, so that's just a little background of compound conditions. Let's do a bit of coding. So let condition 3, need to put that like that, condition 3, let that be true, and condition 1. So what we're saying here, and I'm just going to do a little print line, which always seems to be take me the longest to write out, even though I do it in every single one of my videos. Okay, so here we have let condition 3, now this is going to be true, and whatever our condition 1 is. So our condition 1, in fact, we'll change it to condition 2, just because that's what we're printing, and our condition 2. So our condition 2 was true. So what this is saying is let condition 3 be true, and we'll print out what condition 3 is. Sorry, that was supposed to be a 3 there. And true, we expect true, which indeed we do. Now, what happens if condition 2 is actually false? So let's change that to a greater than, save it, run, indeed we get a false. But, so that's just for and both of the two things have to be true. The same would work if that was false and that was false, so change this to if this was false and condition 2, which is indeed false, then again we get a false. Now, you can Google what results from having a true and a true, a true and a false and a true, and a false and a false. But hopefully it's quite intuitive. But yeah, you can just Google it, and it pops up. So here, let's say, okay, what about true or condition 2? So we're saying let condition 3 be either true or let condition 3. So we're assigning condition 3 to the variable of true or. In fact, I don't know why I put or again. I need to put the symbol for or. And let's just see what happens. Cargo run. We get a true because we have here, this is true. Now if I change this to false, we're going to get false. We do indeed. But if I change condition 2 to something that's true, we're also going to get true, because what the or operator does is it looks for either of them to be true. whereas the AND operator must have both of them to be true. And again, you can do the not, so you can just put an exclamation mark in here. So our condition 2 is true, but we're going to say it's false. So if I change that back to true. So our condition 2 here, we know is true because 5 is less than 7.2. I've negated that, so I've put the not, which means it's going to change true to false. So now we're going to have true, and then this is going to be false. So we expect true to come out because we've got the or. Okay, so all that's left to say really about compound types is, I'll put it here, the ordering is you apply nots first, so not, and then ands, and then ors, and that's just a bit of syntax for you, a bit of formatting. So that's the ordering for compound types. Now I'm going to move on to control flow, and that's things like if, else if, and else statement. Don't know why I capitalised them, but anyway. Okay, so we're going to first start by defining a number, a variable called number. That's going to be 10. Okay, now what I want to do is, I'm going to say, if this number is identically equal to 10, I'm going to open up some brackets, and I'm going to say print the number is 10. Okay, so this is what is known as an if statement. And all we're doing here is we're saying if this number, so our variable here, which is 10, if that's identically equal to 10, then we're going to print out the number is 10. So I'll cargo run this. There we go, the number is 10. And notice if I change this to 100 and save it and cargo run, nothing pops up. And that's because this statement here is saying if this is true, then execute this. But because it's not true, nothing's happening. Now we can account for what happens if this isn't true, but if the number is not 10, then I'm just going to say else print the number is not 10. We're going to run, so cargo run. I just cleared my screen for a bit of, so we can see the number is not 10. Awesome. So here we have, if this is true, then execute this. And if it's not, then we execute this. And that's what else is. Hopefully you're all familiar with else and if statements. Now you can say, well, what if, else if? And, you know, else if the number is 20, or let's say 100 in our case, then we'll print the number is 100. Save that and cargo run. We have an error, and that is because I haven't done a double equals. Of course, we'll cargo run. There we go, the number is 100. So that gives you a bit of an example of if statements. So if the number is 10, we're going to print the number is 10. If that's not true, but the number is 100, we're going to print the number is 100. And if neither of those are true, we're just going to print the number is not 10, and I'm going to put here or 100. Okay, so that's an introduction into if statements in Rust. Very similar to Python, except instead of a colon, we have these brackets. Now I'm just going to show you shorthand, I suppose control flow. So I'm going to say, we're going to test to see if someone's age is in the range of being a teenager, for example. So I'm going to say someone's age is 15. Now in the UK, if you're over the age of 13, you're classed as a teenager. I think that's universal. Don't quote me on that. But what we're going to do is we're going to say let teenager, and what we're doing here is we're going to assign this to a boolean. So we're going to check whether this person's age is in the category for being a teenager. So we're going to let it equal if age is is greater than or equal to 13, and the age is less than 18, because if you're over the age of 18, you're an adult, you're not a teenager. We don't want a 35-year-old teenager, do we? We open up brackets, we just put a bool, and we say true, and then we say, I'm just enter it, else, false. So what we're saying here is, I'm just going to bring this across a little bit. So if age is greater than or equal to 13, and the age is less than 18, then print true, and if not, then print false. And we need the semicolon. And on this line, we're just going to say print ln. And all we're going to do is we're going to print teenager. And that'll tell us whether this person is indeed a teenager. So we have true, and that's because 15 is in the range, but if I change this to 100, well, we'll be realistic. We'll say 45 and cargo run. We have false, and that's because 45 is not the age of a teenager. Although some of us wish we were still teenagers. Okay, cool, so we have done control flow. So that's if, else if, and the else statement. Now we're going to move on to loops, which are pretty cool in Rust. Now I'm just going to put these, in fact I'll do it here. These are used to iterate until a condition is met. So we'll start with an infinite loop. So what we're going to start by doing is assigning a variable called count to equal 0. And what's going to happen is we're going to create a loop, and that's how you define a loop. Inside that loop, we're going to say, okay, well, let's print what our number, number count is. So that's going to go through, and this will loop an infinite number of times. And the reason it does that is because we haven't used the break command, which I'll introduce in a second. But what this is going to do is it's going to say, okay, let's loop, and we're just going to print this over and over and over. So it's literally just going to print 0. But if you want to increase the number of the count, the way that we do that is we make count mutable. If you remember from one of my earlier sections, and we're just going to say, let's add 1 each time. Now this shorthand notation here, for those of you that don't know, it's the same as saying, okay, well, let count equal count plus 1. So each time you're iterating, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So if I was to run this, this would continue going. The number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And yeah, I'm not going to do that because it's probably break my laptop. What I'm going to show you is, yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll just comment this out, because that's what an infinite loop is, for those of you that are interested. But to make the infinite loop stop, we add a condition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy our infinite loop. I'm going to no longer comment it. Now, something that I've been asked on one of my other tutorials is how you comment a big chunk of text. So I'm on a Mac, and the way that you do it is highlight the text that you want, press Command and then the /, and in this case it won't comment it, but it will move it back. But there, we comment. That's how you do it. So we need a condition, and let's think, what condition do we want? Let's say if our count, so our count number gets to 10, we're going to break. So now what's going to happen is it's going to loop over and over, and it's going to say count number is 0, and then it's going to add, and it's going to be 1, and it'll hopefully run through all the way to 9, or perhaps 10. Yeah, 10. Should run through all the way until the count number is 10, and then it'll break. So if I cargo run this now, okay, we have an error, and that's because I need my semicolons, of course. How can I forget? There, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now you probably didn't even see that because it happened so fast, and that's because Rust is a lot faster than programming languages like Python, which I have taught predominantly on this channel. So we're transitioning into the world of super speed, I guess. Yeah, so there we go, that's just a general loop. Now another type of loop we can look at are known as while loops. We're going to do a little game of FizzBuzz. For those of you that don't know, FizzBuzz is kind of these interviewers sometimes give it in coding interviews, and it's basically saying that you take a number between, you go through the numbers from 1 to 100, and if that number is divisible by 15, you say FizzBuzz. If it's divisible by 3, you say fizz, and if it's divisible by 5, you say buzz. And we're just going to code that here. So we're going to continue with our count, which again is 0. So we can use count again here because it's mutable, and we'll say while count is less than or equal to 100, and inside our while loop, remember we need the brackets, because anything inside the brackets is what is executed in this while loop. So we're going to say if our count value is divisible. Now this symbol here is what is known as the mod operator, and essentially what this will do, and I'll just write this, if this section here is saying if you take the count value, so whatever value you have, you divide it by 15, and if the remainder is 0, then we'll execute something. So if it's divisible by 15, then we say fizzbuzz. Now, something that I just failed to mention when I was talking you through fizzbuzz, the reason why this is fizzbuzz is because this number will also be divisible by 5 and also be divisible by 3. And that's why 15 is there, because 15 is divisible by both of them. Okay, now let's say else if, we're going to say the count is divisible by 3, so the remainder left over from 3 is also 0. Then we're going to print fizz. I keep doing Z instead of X instead of Z. Too used to doing maths. And then finally we're going to say else. In fact, we need else if, sorry. If the count is divisible by 5. Print ln buzz. I just realised I need my semicolons in here. And then finally we're going to say, and I just realised, is this the... We're still in, yeah, just checking that all the brackets add up, and then we're going to finally say else, and we're going to say print ln. We're going to print count. So hopefully if I run this should work. We have an issue. And the issue that I had was I forgot to increment, which we desperately need, because otherwise the count is just 0. So there we go. Got a bit too ahead of myself there, so let's just try run again, and I'll just check I'm actually in the right directory, because I just had to kind of completely force quit my terminal then, because it was just going buzz 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 the whole time, which not ideal. Tutorial 9, are we in tutorial 9? Yeah, and then we'll just do a cargo run, and there we have it. Now, just something that I've noticed is we've used count here, so our count, we've made count mutable. So here when we use count, it's actually 10, it's not 0. So we just need to redefine count here and make it equal to 0. Okay, cool. So there we go, a little game of fizzbuzz. Now, on the topic of other loops, I'm going to show you for range loop. And this is basically saying, okay, well, I'm going to take x. So for x in the range, 0, say I want 0 to 100, we're going to do dot dot, well, we'll do 10 as an example. So for x in 0 to 10, I'm going to print x. Okay, so all this is going to do is it's going to go through and say x in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to print out this. There we go, cargo run, it's going to do the whole fizzbuzz, but here we go, 0, 1, 2, all the way to 9, because not forgetting in range loops, it's 1 minus the value, and that's just how it works. So index is 0, and that will go to 9. So I'm just going to put here, this will loop from 0 to 9, for those of you that may have forgotten how range loops works. It's all really fun. Now I'm just going to show you an example of iterating, kind of like an iterating loop. Now I'm just going to create an array, which I think we've touched upon briefly in data types, and this is the array 10, 20, 30, 40. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to iterate through this. I'm going to say for element in our array dot iter. This is going to iterate over every single element, and I'm just going to print out that element. So value is, and then the element. Okay, so I went through that quite fast. This here is simply just looping from 0 to 9. This is how we do a for range loop. So for x in 0 dot dot 10, and that is how you declare the range, the number of range. Iterating loop, we've defined an array. So we're going to say for element in a.iter. Now this is basically going to iterate over this array, so each element will be assigned to a specific value in this array. We're going to print it. So let's do cargo run. We should get 10, 20, 30, 40. There we go. Awesome. Now I think that's everything that I want to teach you about in terms of loops. So I'm just going to capitalise that. Yeah, so this has been quite a long video really. But we looked at conditions, we looked at compound conditions, and then things, the if statement, else if statement, and the else statement. taught you how to do shorthand control flow, so shorthand if and else, and then we looked at a number of different loops. So that has been control flow in Rust. So that was the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe down below if you aren't already subscribed to the channel. Comment if you fancy commenting. I also have a donation page and a Patreon set up for exclusive behind the scenes footage, if you fancy checking that out. But yeah, as I said, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.